everyone. So this is a very impromptu um, live draw just because I physically actually can do one. I'm not too sure how long we're going to go for until Bubs wakes up, and I'm also aware that not many people may watch because they're actually not even aware that I'm doing this, but I'm going to be recording it and releasing it later for people who might miss it, and I'll see how the quality is as well for adding it to the series that I'm doing on Facebook and YouTube. We'll just see how it goes. But I figured because I can, and because it'd be nice if anyone is free to watch, I'll just draw and see what, how many views we really get and if anyone wants to join in. So what I'm doing, if anyone hasn't already seen, this is my emerald tree monitor I've been working on. This is a completely custom piece, meaning that I'm not copying this off a photo or anything. I've drawn this completely from scratch. If you're curious to see the process on this and you haven't actually, seen it so far, you can watch the series where I've been putting together and showing the updates, and I talked about how I did everything, and I talked about how I did the design. I talked about the research on, I am looking at photos, obviously. I've got to make sure I know what to make the animal look correct. But it's not like I've got a photo and I'm just copying that photo, if that makes sense. There's a whole range of different references I've used. Some of the photos are just like, samples of scale, texture, or whatever. The last video I put up was this background. And I've got to even jog my memory I'm pretty sure I published it. I've got to double check that. Yeah, so this is completely custom. This is something that I did have up on my page before, where I got a bunch of you guys to help myself and my client decide which background option we were going to go with, and we went with this more kind of daytime sort of a look, like a jungle kind of a look. And I'm aware this is going to be a very slow process, but I thought it would be kind of cool, at least to try and get maybe one live view or one live draw session down, because so far all I've really been able to do is the pre-recorded stuff, which, it's better than nothing. But I do miss our chats last year where people would jump in and we'd talk, and you guys were able to like steer the conversation, and I'd be able to either assist people in, how to do certain things. But as it stands with pre-recording, because no one's really engaging at the same time, they can only engage afterwards, I kind of have to guess what people want me to talk about. But that's okay. So I'll just explain what I'm doing here. So this background was done in pastel pencil. The monitor and the tree, it's pencil, colored pencil. So there's about 5 different brands of pencil I'm using, and they are a wide range. Most of them are Caran d'Ache Luminance and some polychromos. And then I've got a few different options. I've got like Derwent Drawing, Derwent Lightfast. I lie. I don't have any Derwent Drawing in this set for this palette, but I do have Derwent Lightfast. I don't think I've got any Prismacolor. No Prismacolor this time around. So yeah, it's just Derwent Lightfast, polychromos, and some luminance for this guy. So what I've been doing is I've decided to do the background a bit more first before I work any further on the monitor, simply because being custom, I'm not copying from a photo, meaning that any lighting effects and how things bounce and reflect off things, I don't have actually a reference for that. So when you're drawing something completely out of context, sometimes you're going to miss things. So I figured it was safer for me to draw the background in mostly first, because when I'm drawing the scales, let's say on his arm here and his neck, when more of the color and lighting gets added on, say, the tree branch, there might be some reflection here. Because their scales are shiny, it'll help me know if I need to add reflections in. So I'm using light blue pastel matte, and what I'm doing is I'm just moving different colors and browns around. And what I will do is, once I get these base layers laid in and I get a smooth look, because anyone who's drawn on pastel matte before, it's quite grainy at the start. When you first go in, you can see all the little dots of the tooth. So at the moment I'm just layering in. So to make things look realistic, even doesn't matter what you're drawing, you work in small little patches. You're not going to be dealing with uniform matte color unless it's like artificial, like a sheet of plastic or something. And so giving it all these different variations of types of browns gives it a far more organic look, I find. So this here is the what's this, Cold Grey 6. I'm going to start blocking in some of the shadows because the light source is over here, so there's going to be like patchy sunlight coming through here. There's going to be ambient light, and when there's a lot of ambient light, the shadows are not like super strong. So at sunset, sunrise, or if you've got a strong light source, you're going to have that really strong shadow, very distinct shadow. When there's a lot of ambient light, the shadows are a lot more subdued. So what I'm going to do is I'm drawing them in close to the body, but you're not going to get this really strong kind of a shadow, if that makes any sense. So these are really challenging. I love doing custom work like this, but they really are a challenge. They really do test out your knowledge on lighting. And I like to play it careful because, like I said, I'm doing the background mostly. Like normally I do the main character, the main subject, then background, but I'm doing it the other way around just because it is custom and it's going to make it easier for me to assist on the lighting with the actual monitor, especially having these scales, because it's easier to kind of screw it up then. Yeah, good question. So for anyone who can't see comments on this later, question says that they haven't seen me work on Pastelmat before. How am I liking it over cotton rag? Yeah, so I've actually very rarely done Pastelmat. I did try Pastelmat about 2 years ago, and it wasn't this surface, and I had to play with it, and it was not with colored pencil, it was pastel. It's different. It's very different. It's a different technique to the cotton. The cotton, I can be a lot more aggressive. So I still layer up on the cotton a fair bit, and then what I do is I then burnish quite aggressively as the top layer when I want shiny things. With this one, when you're using Pastelmat, it's different in the sense that you have to work, you've got to be much more patient with the Pastelmat, I found. I did a test, I've got a test sheet over there, which was honestly, it's just got scribbles all over it. It was me trialing out different combinations and different pencils and things like that. One thing that surprised me, I don't know if anyone else has found this, it doesn't seem as though the brand really matters in terms of if you're going to get a smooth finish or a bumpy finish. It actually came down to the pencil, because what I found was, say Polychromos, Faber-Castell Polychromos, I had my test piece of Pastelmat, and some of the so I do, let's say, I think it was terracotta, or it was in the brownie kind of range, and it was super, super grainy. And I tried a different polychroma, I can't remember which one it was, and it was really smooth. So even though they're the same brand, they kind of had a different finish. And so when I realized that, I did a lot of different color combinations on this test piece, so that I could assist me on this commission to not accidentally put things in a different order, because it does seem like the order in which you put certain pencils really does matter. So I found putting the wax-based layers down first actually helps a heap, and the polychromos layer beautifully over the kind of more waxier sort of layers. But yeah, it's different, but I actually am really enjoying it. I loved it back when I first tried it a couple of years ago. It's just that Pastelmat's quite difficult to get your hands on in Australia. But yeah, it's going quite well. It's just different. I don't think I'd be running any actual tutorials just yet. That's why the series that I've been putting out, I haven't been pitching them as tutorials, because I don't think that's really fair when I'm not exactly experienced on this surface. And I'm not even that experienced in some of these. I've been using Polychromos for a while, but I'm still new to the luminance. I'm still new to Derwent. So it's a bit of an experiment. This is the first time I've done a commission on Pastelmat with some of these coloured pencils. But yeah, I did a green toucanette. I think it was close to 2 years ago now, and it's up on my website still, but that one was the first pastel piece I did, and I think from memory it was This is before I had pan pastels. I think from memory I used Rembrandt dry pastels, I think, and I used a few cheapy ones at the art store. They were still professional grade ones, but I can't remember what they were, but they were on discount. So that's why I call them cheapy. They're probably not cheapy, but they were on discount because they were discontinuing them, so I just grabbed a few. But yeah, so I thought you guys might like to see this. If you've got any questions, if you want to ask anything in particular. But yeah, I still definitely love the cotton rag. I think this one was a bit of a gamble. I started this one earlier, so this one I wasn't due on my timetable to start until the start of March, but I started it about, because I was ahead on my commissions, I started it, I think, end of Feb, because I realised, because it's a new surface, that there was a risk I would have to start over, and I also realised that I'd want to do a bit of experimenting in case I, just so I can know what I'm doing. But yeah, you've got to factor in that time. You've also got to, if you think that there's going to be a problem, you've got to factor in the time to redo if you do need to redo. The other thing I did want to mention, I mentioned it in the longer series that I've released. Actually, no, I edited it out. I apologise. But here, these white bits. So I had a while back someone asked me about lighting. I think it was back when I was doing the Gothiga skink, because that was another custom piece I did where it wasn't based on a photo. And we were talking about lighting, and this was probably a good example. So when you've got bright light coming behind a physical object, it's going to wash it out. So it's a lot more realistic to actually do that. So instead of me doing like a nice sharp line of this tree branch or whatever it is he's on, you wash this kind of area out, and then I'll be doing a highlight around his head, because that's just how the light would play. I'm not sure if it's got an official name or term or whatever, but that's just what it would do. Yeah, so pretty much all you're going to see in this video, because this is a slow medium, it's just going to be me building the layers up. I may or may not get to some detailed bits, but it's just lots and lots of building up of layers, very lightly. At the moment I'm not pressing super hard or hard at all, but yeah, it's just building up lots of layers, and at the moment it still looks not sharp, so it's not very realistic at the moment. It's still a bit kind of soft here, but what's going to happen is when I sharpen it up and I get stronger contrasts in there, and when I get the really sharp straight highlights, so they're not blurred, then it will start to look a bit more realistic, I hope. That's the hope. I really struggled as well with trying to come up with ideas of how to make this piece of branch, and I'm still kind of just winging it. So at the moment I'm just kind of doing like a smoothish wood sort of thing, but I'm thinking I might need to darken it. So these guys live in rainforests, so I guess the tree branch should probably be darker than what I'm drawing it, so I'll just start doing that. Yeah, it's still base layers. There's a lot of me just making it up as I go along. I tried to look at a bunch of different photos to get some inspiration for jungle tree branches, and there was lots of ones covered in moss and things like that. But my other concern was making sure I was looking at photos that were in the correct country and knowing that it's in the same habitat that these guys are found in. So I just thought I'll try and match it as much as I can, but it's more of a sort of generic sort of a look. So yeah, so now I'm just going to block in a bit of colour down here on the base, again very lightly, and polychromos are beautiful at smoothing out the kind of harsh underlayers. So here we can see all the, I don't know if you can see on the camera, all these little dots, that's the pastel matte showing through. As I keep working and working over it, very light layers at a time, that'll start to slowly disappear. And then it will start to look smoother and smoother and smoother. But yeah, it's just a matter of, like, I think it was the red-eyed tree frog, and I'd have to double check because there's not all of those videos have been released yet. I think the texture video I have released, so I did talk about, in that one, I talked about how to do textured tree branches and frog skin. And I said a lot of it is really just, honestly, it's dots or it's squiggles. So what I'm going to do for this is going to be very similar to what I did for the tree frog, where you just do random shapes like what I'm doing, and then you just build up on that. So over here it might be like there's a more defined pale piece. I might draw a shadow over here, or I might crisp that up a little bit to make it look like it's a piece of wood jutting out, like a bit of texture part on the branch jutting out. So yeah. So that's what we're doing. I'm just sitting here. I thought I would do this as a live draw. I was going to pre-record it, and then I thought, you know what? I might be able to get away with a live draw. I don't know how many people are going to watch it because it's not exactly advertised. But yeah, this way that gives people a chance to at least ask me some questions in real time if you manage to get on when I'm doing this. Otherwise, not a big deal. I'll just have it, once I'm done, I'll just upload it and then people can ask in the comments if you like. No problem with that. So yeah, so I'm using, what's this one, the brown ochre 10%. If anyone's thinking of getting the luminance range, they are not cheap, but having said that, if you're going to look at just getting a few different ones, these ones that have like a percentage on them, they are absolutely gorgeous. I find I'm using so many of those layering in. One of my favorite Prismacolors for blending was one called Cream, and then Ginger Root, and I think it was called Cloud Blue, I think. I'd have to check. But yeah, when I started looking at the other brands and the other types of pencils, so Primrose is the luminance equivalent of Cream. So Prismacolor Cream is pretty similar to Primrose in luminance. But yeah, I noticed all these percentage ones, they sort of do what I loved about those lighter Prismacolor things, where they've got a very natural palette there, and because of that they are fantastic for burnishing, they are fantastic for layering in extra tone. Super good. Alright, so now what I'm going to do, I'm going to be a little bit more risky. I'm getting a black. Now I haven't finished blurring everything, but now I'm going to start doing really just jagged dark lines, and I'm kind of holding the pencil really bad so it's not controlled, and that way to kind of assist in the more realistic I guess naturalistic sort of look, and not having it uniform, it doesn't look as controlled. It creates these sort of jagged bits. Now I'm going to look at what that just created, and I'm going to build on it. So if I see this like dark little ridge down coming in and I'm coloring it in, making it look a little bit more realistic. And the thing is, any part that's pointed up is going to have a highlight on it. The more on this side, the more highlights are going to be. The more over here, the finer those highlights will be. But the point is, this will add just the extra tonal difference adds a little bit more kind of contrast a bit to help you get that realism in there. But you can still see there's still all those little dots because this is still a base layer. I'm still going to have to keep going over it to smooth that out. But yeah, so down here it's going to be a shadow. So shadows, if anyone's struggles with shadows, especially if you do commissions and you want to put a fake shadow in at the base that wasn't in the reference, you always do darker wherever the subject's making contact to a surface, and then it kind of disappears. It's sort of light. The shadow is less dark the further away it gets. If anyone wants to, I can do like an actual tutorial explaining how lighting and shadow works, because I know that there is a few people who do commission work and say they've got a photo that might have been taken in a customer's, I don't know, living room with a dog or a cat, and they want to crop out the messy stuff and just draw the animal, but then the animal's kind of just floating in midair, and then they don't really know how else to sort of do it. I'm happy to do a tutorial on how to do, you know, realistic fake shadows or realistic fake blankets. Like, you just draw that stuff in. Oh yeah, I definitely want to do more spiders. Pretty much, if people inquire about bugs, I've done a beetle as well. Yeah, I actually offer them a discount. So if the person who got my spider is watching, he'll know that, yeah, I offered a discount to that because I want to encourage spiders and invertebrates, because I know that they're not something that people tend to get commissioned that often. And she was gorgeous. I used to not be able to touch a picture of a spider, and after you work, what, 12 hours or whatever it was on that wolf spider, I actually fell in love. She had gorgeous colours, loved her eyes, great legs. Yeah, that's a really good way to get rid of arachnophobia, just exposure therapy. But yeah, I've actually got 2 wildlife photographers who've got some fantastic spider photography, which I've saved, and they're cool with me drawing that if I want to get around to, or if I can get around to it. But if anyone has a commission of a spider they want me to do, I am all for it. The spiders I've got lined up to do, there's a couple more wolf spiders, peacock spiders. There's some, they're pretty, if anyone is a bit scared of spiders, peacock spiders are probably the easy things to start accepting, to look at it, to not freak you out, and then you can kind of ease into other species. Yeah, there's a wolf spider living in my bearded dragons enclosure. I haven't given her a name yet, but she's a gorgeous big wolf spider, and it's a bioactive enclosure, and assuming he doesn't eat her, I might try and get a good photo of her and maybe draw her, give her a name. But yeah, hopefully he doesn't eat her. They are super cute too, aren't they, the peacock spiders, when they do their little dances. Pretty much everyone I know who's really squeamish about spiders, I always recommend that they look up peacock spiders, and start that with their exposure therapy to try and get over any fears that they have. Most spiders really honestly just want to be left alone. They don't want to waste their venom on something so big as us, where we can't actually, we can't exactly feed them. They're not going to get a meal out of us, so there's no point them wasting their venom on us. They honestly just want us to leave them alone. It's just a matter of making sure you don't accidentally, give them a reason to accidentally bite you, or bite you out of fear, or, anything like that. So what I've done is I've put about maybe 5 or 6 different layers. I've been alternating between the luminance and the light fast in this area. Again, like I said at the start of the video, if anyone was there for that, building up different layers and just randomly putting different tones down just to add that extra realism. And now I'm going over with a polychromo because that smooths things out just a bit. As I go towards this flare, I'm going to lighten my pressure even further, and then I keep swapping it out to the different creams and stuff. So this one is ivory in the polychromo, and then as I get closer I'll be swapping that out again for just a white. Normally I don't like the polychromo white. I tend to avoid it, or I use it as a base layer for blending, just because I find it's way too translucent. I don't really like it, but on this I'm finding it's quite good for blending the top layers. So very little circles. I feel like maybe I should actually watch some tutorials on other people who are a bit more experienced on the surface using these pencils and just see how they go. But this was my experience, at least. I've still got a bit of learning to go with this surface. But yeah, that was a huge shock for me. I found out when I did my little testing, and I found out some of the pencils, I think not dark ivory, it's not even a colour. Dark indigo, I think, was another one. But yeah, it's like how they all do different things. How some of the polychromos are really super smooth, and some of them really honestly aren't. I'm just also thinking, when I get this, after we finish recording and I post this up later, in the past I haven't been able to transfer across the comments. So anyone watching this after it's live, you're not going to be able to see any comments. So when I'm responding to people's comments, I'll try and say what the comment is, but I'm not sure if there is a way to include the comments or not, or if it's a different platform, if it's like platforms like Twitch or things like that, which are better suited to including any comments into it, but I'm not as familiar with those. Okay, so now, because I've just been playing around with putting the ivory in, I'm now going to come back in with the black. The reason I'm doing black is I want a stark tone difference. So this would be like the cracks in the bark. Not even sure what species of tree would do this, but you know, hopefully it'll look kind of legit. I'm sure there is some sort of species of tree that has this kind of bark patterning. I'm just kind of randomly layering everything up. Let's spin my pencils a little bit. Okay. We'll keep going. Yeah, because I wanted to like mark in where those dark bits would be with the black, and then I can build up with these browns and things, and then on the top layer I'm going to go back in with the black, make it darker again. Yeah, hopefully this guy will look awesome. I've still got to get my red-eyed tree frog and the 2 gannets that I did sent off, and once they're sent off they'll be ready for purchase and prints. So I'm hoping to get a couple of froggies done this year, and then we can look at what Australian animals we're going to include in the end of year calendar if I do that again, because that seemed like a lot of people liked the animals that got chosen for that one. So I still will put a macropod in there. I refuse to do a red or grey kangaroo at this point. Not because I don't like them, but because when it comes to Australian animals, they usually get picked. Like the kangaroo is literally, you know, the absolute iconic Australian animal that gets picked on Australian themed things. So I might put a different, like I might put a pademelon in there, or a some sort of wallaby, or I'm going to try and go with the lesser well-known macropods. Because yeah, anyone who's ever been into an Australian themed petting zoo or something, you've probably seen grey kangaroos in there. I doubt you would have seen a red kangaroo unless it was like a very young one. They tend to, my understanding is they tend to be a lot more aggressive, which is why the greys are usually in there, not the reds. The red kangaroos are Central Australia, more central kind of areas. Alrighty, so now I've just decided to make this area just a little bit more dark. Like I said at the start, there's still going to be ambient light, which restricts the shadows, but I think from a viewer's perspective, I was going to do this all light in here, but I think from a viewer's perspective, it makes more sense that this area is a bit more dark. And then I'm going to blend it out to light as the branch kind of curves around, and see if I can succeed at that, or if it fails miserably, but we'll get there. So little circles. And then I'm going to go dark in the corner down here, and I'll blend it out with the lighter browns. But you can see what I mean. So as a first layer, it's really gritty, all these little dots here. But you can tell from up here, it is possible to make it really smooth. It just takes a lot of layers, soft layers, using circle motions. Get your wax layers down first if you can. Put polychromos on top and other oil-based ones on top. And I'm just slowly lining it up here. Okay, now I'm going to swap it for, where was it? So that was raw umber. I'm just looking for the polychromo raw umber. Here it is. So still raw umber, just a different brand. Which is kind of interesting. It's got me thinking. So different brands. When you've got certain colours, let's say terracotta, raw umber, sienna, very common colours. Some of them are pretty spot on. You get the two, you do a swatch of the two brands side by side, and they're pretty close. However, I've noticed in some cases, so with this, if you've got a polychromo raw umber and a luminance raw umber, to me, they are very different colours. So I just find it interesting that that's the case, that you can have two very different colours, in my opinion, and that appears to be okay. I'm just doing I might just do the random circle tactic. This is another strategy I do for making kind of realistic, natural-ish looking stuff, is I just draw random shapes and circles, and then I'll build off that. It's the way this works, my way of doing random stuff. It works in a similar way. You know, when you like look at a cloud, or if you ever did that as a kid, where you look at clouds and like, oh, I can see an elephant, oh, I can see a dog, or whatever the shape is. It's on the same idea. You're looking at something relatively random, and your brain is seeing patterns in there. So when I'm doing these random shapes, I'll start to see areas that I can build on with shadow, and I can build on with texture. to make it look a bit more realistic. I still need to work on this though, because whenever I look at stuff I've done custom and stuff I've done from a photo, I can usually tell which ones were copied from photos and which ones I literally just made up as I went along. If you see my Gathega skink, that's an example of a background that literally I just made up. So some of the areas of the background are a bit too uniform. It's like I'm trying to be random, but in doing so, it's too even. I don't know, it's like when you say to someone, do something random, they end up doing it even. Or if you say spread out randomly, they'll spread out like evenly, not random. Randomly, it would mean that there's like clumps here and there and then spaces here and there. But yeah, so that's what I'm doing. So I just did a few random squiggles just then. I'm just slowly sort of putting these into it. But yeah, I still haven't 100% decided what type of bark this is, so I'm just sort of doing random browns. I've got a feeling if I'm doing this sort of lumpy bark, it needs to be darker. Because all the trees I've seen that have this sort of patterning on it, they're kind of like a dark brown. If anyone has any good photos of trees they want to send me that kind of look a bit like this texture, I would love to see it. Always take extra, if anyone has extra things for inspiration, I'm happy to have a look at it. Give me some ideas. Because yeah, I'll see how the slice goes. I'll obviously test it first, but I'll see how the slice also goes in cutting out really sharp, detailed sections. Because especially with wood, wood's got all sorts of like sharp little bits and pieces here and there. But yeah, there's a few things that are experimental with this, which is seeing how we go with the drawing, seeing how we go with my recordings of the series. Some of it's time-lapse parts, some of it's me talking like I am now. Trying to work out what actually works best and the best way to edit things that makes it as useful and interesting to people, because I'm also aware that there's a mixture of people who follow me. There's artists that follow me because they are curious how I do stuff and they want to learn, or they're just curious, and there are people who are not artists at all and, you know, don't like drawing stick figures, but they follow me because they like the animals. So I've got to be aware of that. I haven't done fantasy for a while. At the moment, my fantasy art is limited to my daughter demanding I draw, you know, unicorns or dragons or whatever. We do drawings in the backyard on chalk, with chalk, and she'll make her demand, and I have approximately 3.2 seconds to start and finish it before she's on to the next request. Lately, it's been dinosaurs. She will just ask me to draw a heap of dinosaurs. But no, I haven't really done any fantasy for quite a long time now, actually. Used to be all I'd draw at high school. My textbooks were just full of dragons in the corner and all of that kind of thing. I guess for nostalgic purposes, I left a few of my dragon drawings up on my YouTube channel, or I think there's only maybe 2 up there now, from like 10 years ago. It was good fun though. Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should like look at some mythology and draw kind of realistic fantasy creatures. Alright. I'm trying not to go too hard on the background up close to his body, because I want to be able to potentially draw over that background if I need to. This is more to me to kind of see what I need to do lighting wise. Oh, thank you. Yeah, that was one of the first YouTube videos I actually did, and I haven't actually checked out the views on it, but I think it was like 35,000 last I checked, and then I don't know. Yeah, everyone seemed to like that one, which was awesome. I'm guessing to have that many views, someone or some people have obviously shared it in a few different places and it's circulated, because my other stuff has got nowhere near that. My YouTube channel was very neglected for quite a while. It's only recently, in the last year or a few months, that I've actually started taking the time to go through processing more videos and actually uploading more. But yeah, I think I'm falling into that trap again where I'm trying to be random, but it's becoming too uniform. we'll see how it plays out. So I'm still doing base layers. I've still got plenty of tooth left to do highlights over the top. So I'm not stressing out too much just yet. But yeah. So I might blur some of these areas and I'll make them a little bit larger. It is relaxing though, I do say, being able to do all this. Okay, my other half is back. Let's see how noisy he is when he comes in. Because my daughter hasn't woken up yet, so I am totally making the most of this. Seeing how much I can get done. Yep, so I'm just creeping into here. Like the thing I'm thinking about is this color, the colors I've done up here, it's almost like that's the color that the wood would be if you stripped the bark back. So yeah, it's just going to be a work in progress. So the idea is I just keep building up on it and tweaking it. I might even darken up here a heap. Yeah, I'll keep working on it. But it's going to be good fun when I actually get to the scales. I'm really looking forward to doing the actual monitor and working on the scales. I think once I've done both sides here, I'll be able to actually do the scales then. Yeah. So yeah, you can sort of, I don't know how clear it is on the video, but I'm hoping you can sort of see what I'm doing, where I'm kind of just randomly shading, but then I'll put kind of more attention into, like here I've just sort of drawn this section in. But yeah, it's, I think the description of, like, you know, looking at the clouds and drawing what, or saying what you think you see is the best way to describe it when you're trying to do something random, is just fill things in. All right, you're going to see me actually try and draw now. So to get this looking a bit real, I'm actually going to have to draw his foot in. I've kind of randomly roughly done where the claws would be. So this is me. I'm going to just talk out loud so people can get through my thought process. You've got ankle is about up here. It's then going to be, it's 3D, so it's going towards the tree. It's actually standing up a little bit. You've got the foot pad here. So toe pad, so the knuckle joint about here, this knuckle joint is actually up here, like that. And what happens is when reptiles, or birds even, when they're on a tree, they're curled. So you're going to have the joint here and then a big giant claw coming down. So this is the joint. I'm going to draw it as a semicircle because it's aiming down, and when it aims down you're just going to see a top circle, and the claw is just going to look kind of like a triangle from this angle. If the toe was in this direction or this direction, you're actually going to see it, but if it's directly beneath you, if it was, it's going to be pretty much looking like a triangle. So I'm going to draw, I'll draw it in that direction. So this toe, so that's his knuckle. I might draw it about here. So for this toe, it's going to point a bit more in this direction. So you see a slight, very slight curve, but not a heap. Sometimes the actual, I might make it a bit longer. Sometimes the shadows can tell you a lot more than what you're looking down on. So I might draw this as long, and you might see a shadow that does this, that shows that actual curve of the claw. The other thing to know is in, you know, various species of lizard, their toes just look completely silly. So you can look at their toes, and a human hand, you know, assuming you haven't broken your hand, it should be nice and straight. If you look at, like, up here, I've drawn his fingers just wonky, because anyone who owns, whether you've got a bearded dragon, a monitor of some sort, whatever, even iguanas and things like that, their toes just go all over the place, and that's actually normal. That is completely normal. They're not broken or anything like that. So me trying to draw that in will hopefully make it a bit more realistic. I'm very sure they do. So the question, if anyone is watching this after, is do these guys have a third eye? Parietal eye. I'm very sure he does, because pretty much my understanding is all of Varanus genus have third eyes. On this angle, you probably wouldn't really see it. If his head was tilted, so if I just show you, pretend that the tips of the pencil is his eye. If this was you, so this right eye, left eye, if you were looking top down, if you turn the head, all of a sudden, whatever's in the, if the head was angled and you're looking down on it like this, you would see that third eye. But if you tilt the head, which is the angle he's on here, so he's on this kind of this angle, you're not really going to see the parietal eye very clearly. Even top down, it's pretty hard to see sometimes. Because my boy, I know if I look at the top of his head, I can see it. It's just, but honestly, if you didn't know it was a third eye, you would just think it was a funky looking scale. And by the time I've done all the detailing up here, because he's going to have lots of different black dots and grey dots I'll be doing for the texture on the scale, or, sorry, not texture, for the markings on his scales. So yeah, I don't think I wouldn't think you would see the third eye. There's a few photos I've got where the head, that people had sent me to reference, where the head's on more of a tilted angle. And even on those photos, I can't honestly tell you where the third eye is. I can't see it. But yeah, I know we had this question when we did the Gothita skink, and someone asked about monitors having it. My friend who actually has a monitor, she took a photo of his head for me, and she's like, yep, he's got one. Alright, so I was going to do, again, I'm really light layer. I'm just coming in with that Polychromo Raw Umber again. So what I did was I wanted to draw his toe in. The toes are going to be actually drawn quite dark. The highlights are going to be more in the center of the scales. So the top ridge is where I'll do the highlights. Not so much on the edges. That's why I can get away with doing this kind of dark. So I'm just trying to like... draw in. So yeah, if you want to draw a realistic reptile toe, make it look really funky. Make it look like it's jammed its hand in the door or its foot in the door and its toes are going everywhere, because that's the normal thing that they do, especially this pinky toe. It just goes everywhere. Now, so I'll draw a big claw. Because of the angle it's on, you're going to see the shape of the claw a bit better. Because my understanding is if he's trying to grab on the tree, he's going to be spreading his fingers out and his toes out. So do that. And then arc that a little bit. So the shadow, I'm just trying to think. So there actually might not even be any contact until about here. So this might be up. Yeah, so we'll do that up. And that way, contact here, no contact. So that means this part of the toe is actually off the tree. And the way that you draw that in, so again, when we were talking, I talked earlier about if you draw, say you're watching this and you also do commissions and you might do cats and dogs, and the client wants you to draw a shadow in or draw a blanket that never exists. If you're wanting to make it look like there is realistic contact with a surface, you do a darker bit where the contact actually is, and you blend and you just make it disappear kind of where there isn't. So here I've just sort of, for the moment, just doing this. I'll just move it up. I just realized I don't think you can even see that. So yeah, contact here, and then not even any contact in the middle, just dark here, and that shows that there's contact. Okay. And then here I'm going to just very lightly draw in where this shadow is going to be under his leg. So what I might do is I'm going to draw most of the tree here and here and on this side. So I'll just move it again. And on this side of his head. And then what that means is the next session I can focus on his arm and I can focus on his head. And I have enough of the background of the tree in to have a better idea what the colours and lighting will be on the scales. And if I need to draw any browns on the scales to show reflections, but then I would still need to come in again on the tree branch to do the highlights and further details to make it actually look realistic, which is still a work in progress. I'm still kind of tweaking the best way to do that. But yeah. So again, with the tail, surprising, I don't know if this is surprising to people, but this animal, when it's sitting on this tree, the only parts really touching it would be the foot pad and then each toe up here, foot or hand pad. There's a good chance the body is not actually touching at all. So the shadow here is not going to be super dark, whereas when I do my top layers, the final layers on this piece, I'm going to be coming in with a black here, 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 and wherever I see contact, to darken it to demonstrate there is contact here. However, even this part I'm doing here, this is not going to be, this part, the animal's not touching the tree. So the upper thigh here and the hips and knee, they're not touching the tree, they're above the tree. So the shadow here is going to be a bit lighter because ambient light is getting in there and lightening it. And with the tail, I've got to decide how to do this. At the start, I wanted to draw almost like a mirroring of the tail in shadow form, and then I realized, no, that's not actually realistic because the ambient light would be too bright to give that really strong. You're not going to get that with this kind of lighting. You would get that if I shone a torch on him, you would get that strong contrast of the curl of the tail. So what I'm going to do instead, I've decided, is pretty much ignore it because the tail is going to be up away. I'm just going to draw the entire tree branch here just a bit darker. Just the whole thing, okay? Because I don't think it would be realistic for me to draw the tail shadow in the way I had originally thought I was going to do it. I just don't think that would be realistic. I might change my mind. I'm saying this now, and then if anyone's like watching this after I've already finished it, you might see that, oh, well, you ended up doing that. But yeah, at the moment I'm saying I'm not planning to do that because I don't think at this point in time it would look realistic. But we'll see what happens. Okay, so I've just used the Polychromo Dark Cool Grey 6 to do that just then. Now coming in with the Cool Grey, I think it's 4. Yes, Cool Grey 4. I know the pastel mat is light blue and this is pretty similar to that, but I'm just laying this down as a bit of a foundation pigment. Now I'm going to come in with the Luminance, where is it? There we are, Raw Umber. Because what that's going to do is this is going to lighten the dark grey, oh, I keep saying it wrong, the Cool Grey 6, but still show it. And then I'll be able to start building up the extra layers down here. And the thing is, there's still plenty of tooth up here, so if I decide to keep going over it in the process of filling in that tooth, I might change that pattern again. Yeah, if anyone hasn't seen already, I've got the red-eyed tree frog. I've put, I think it's 3 tutorials out that are not super long. They just show small elements of how to do it. It's the how to draw frogs, textured frog skin and tree branches and things like that is in one. It's not particular to tree frogs, but I also did one on how to smooth backgrounds out using just pencil. That was on the cotton, I think, yeah, cotton paper. So not pastel mat. Slightly different techniques are used for different things. I would not feel confident putting any sort of tutorial out at the moment on the pastel mat, just because I'm still learning myself. So that wouldn't really be very fair, I don't think. So one thing I've also decided, I was going to have it as though his toes were like over here, but I think it looks a bit weird, so I might just lift some pigment up. So I've got my kneadable eraser. I'm just going to randomly add a toe in. Okay, so the way I'm going to add the toe in, there's not heaps of pigment down yet, so it's not a big deal. So slight little outline there for where the toe goes. Colour the brown in back again. Yeah. Let's come in with the buff titanium in the luminance, just because it's a bit more of an opaque kind of colour. And this is just to remind me that there is a toe here later on. Then I'll do a bit more detail when I actually do it. Might. I'm not happy with that. Let's get rid of it. So I'm not happy with that. Reason I'm not happy with it is we already have one toe directly looking down on with the camera. We need this one to look funky if it's to look realistic, so let's do it out here. Cool. Let's do it like this. Nice and funky. Might be hard for you to see at this point on the video, but hopefully in a second it'll be a bit clearer, and I'll colour in that toe that I just did. So we want this one nice and funky, going in weird positions. Okay, so that's the claw. It's the toe. Yeah. The most wrong looking it is, is the more right it is. There we go. I've still got to fill that tooth in, but that's a little bit better. Alright, even though I've actually done a really good, been able to get a bit of drawing, and I am going to have to go soon just because I have to pick my daughter up from daycare. But I am actually happy I managed to get a bit of the tree down. So what I might do, it's just so I can work on more monitor on the next video. What I might do is I'm going to come up here and let's, before I go, I spend a bit of time up here. Oh yeah, I get people freak out. So the comment was just, it's so true. My beauty's toes always look disjointed. Yeah, yeah. People who come over and they see my boy, they freak out thinking he's got broken toes or something. I'm like, nope, that's just how he looks. All right, so this is the luminance white. I'm just laying in using circular kind of motions very lightly because you don't want to, you know, squish things in too much, put too much pigment down. And I'm doing circular motions for that kind of lens-ish sort of flare. Coming in up and over. And then what I'm going to do is buff titanium. Where are you? There you are. And do that. And after I do all this, I'm going to come in again with the white again, which is the very center bit. And whiten it up a bit. And I'm going to come out. Because, yeah, like I said, me doing a bit of the background, doesn't have to be all of it, but if I do a bit of the background now, it will assist me in making sure my lighting is on point. I don't want to do too much of the background because I want to work from top left to bottom right because I am living on the edge and not putting glassine under my hand because I like to live dangerously. And that way, if I have no pigment down here or very little pigment down here, it means that there is less pigment to potentially smudge up higher. And Pastel Matte is absolutely fantastic at holding pigment, which can be a negative when you get pigment in places you don't want it to be. Okay, let's try, this is the Derwent Light, one of the light fast ones. It's mostly polychromos and luminance I've got, but this one here is a Derwent Light Fast. This is called Wheat. I actually really like this. I'm also living dangerously by blowing excess pigment. That is very risky. If you're just learning, do this at your own risk. Because what happens is you get a bit of spit on the page, and that's not fun. But yeah, I'm pretty careful when I do it. It's not to say I haven't had accidents before. So like I said, you're living on the edge when you do that. So what I'm doing now is, even though this part's going to be darker, I'm doing the base layers a bit lighter, and then I have the freedom to come in and gradually darken it, like increase it over a little bit more. So we come in. So yeah, I'm happy with how it is looking. Like, to me, I've got to learn and I've just got to accept the point that at the moment when I do custom tree branches, to my eye, there's still something about them not quite right, and I can't put my finger on it. Whereas if I copy directly from a picture, then yeah, no problem, it's going to look exactly like the picture that I'm copying. But when I'm doing it, kind of, you know, making it up as I go along, there's always something I can't quite put my finger on that makes me think that something's a bit off. Something doesn't quite look right. yeah, I'll keep tweaking it. That's why I've still left plenty of tooth down here, so I'm still going to be able to keep tweaking it and stuff. Let's get dark again. So this is the Van, I think it's Van Dyke. Yep, Van Dyke Brown. It's just, that's not the underside. This is just me putting like a random kind of crease, I guess, in. I'm just trying to make a few random patterns in the tree bark. Cool. All right. So let's load this in. Then let's try raw umber. So yeah, we'll see how we go. I'm also curious, once I've finished, because it's not really a fair testament at this point when it's a work in progress, I'm curious to see if there is a difference in how the piece turns out on pastel mat compared to the pieces I've done on cotton, because I'm definitely more experienced and I feel more comfortable on the cotton and stuff. Even though it also has a rough tooth, but it's just a different techniques that you need, because this stuff is it's very good. I like it. It's just I'm having to use slightly different techniques with how I'm having to be more aware of which pencils go down first over other pencils, for instance. Okay, so again with the random, just doing different random shapes. There we go. So we'll see. But yeah, like I said, if anyone's got any questions, feel free to ask. If you ask after the fact, like after this video is published, I'll just do my best to try to answer it in the comments as well as in the future next video. So yeah, the next video I'm hoping to do, finish the head, actually finish. We might start mapping out what patterns I'm going to do on his neck and what patterns I'm going to do along the back. I need to do a quick little bit of research first to confirm a couple of things, because I've been looking at different references, and to me it looks like the juveniles have more spots and the adults have more stripes, which I found to be the same thing when I was doing the Gothega skink. So I need to double check that. It's not really a big deal, but I guess the big deal is I need to work out what age this head would be, if these proportions that I've used are more for a juvenile or more for an adult, and if so, I need to make sure that I do the markings correct, because I don't want to do, say, a juvenile head shape but then have adult markings, or vice versa, have an adult head shape but have juvenile markings. It's a small detail, but it matters to me, because there's going to be people who are very familiar with this species, and that kind of a detail, if I was them and I knew the species very well, it would look really wrong. I guess it's like the equivalent of, say, if I drew a penguin chick, and I'm sure most of you know penguins as chicks are different colors, or actually no, better still, a chicken. We all know chickens are born different to the adults. They don't have the adult plumage. So if I drew an adult chicken in adult proportions, but I made it yellow and fluffy, to someone who was very familiar with chickens and knew that that's not right, it would just look wrong. So that's what I'm going to try and confirm before I do these markings. I need to double check I've drawn the head shape as an adult or as a juvenile or whatever it is, double check what they are. So I'll talk to a few people who own them, and I'll look at a few more photos and things like that. And then that'll help me decide what markings to draw. I'm hoping to do like a mixture of spots and kind of stripes, because the spots are really pretty. And I really enjoyed that on the Gothega skink, and I liked it as well when I did the Xander one a couple of years ago. That was good fun. It also means that I can give a few tips, because there's a few tricks that are pretty neat to get that effect, and they're pretty simple to do. You can do them with kids even, and they make a really pretty result. So that'd be kind of neat to be able to do. Cool. So I'm just drawing in a bit more of this tree. I've still got to decide what I'm going to do down here. because I don't know, it just still looks like something's still not 100% right. I'll just come in with the black and I'll just do purposeful real gashes in here and see if that breaks this sort of thing that's annoying me, because something doesn't look right here. There we go. Yeah, so I've just done, again, light source over here. That's why I've got a shadow coming in a little bit here. But again, I said before, I don't want a strong shadow because there is a lot of ambient light going on here. So that would be the claw that I drew in before. Go in like this. So the only time I really use black strongly would be things like pupils or like the shadows of a black animal or things like that. But I do use it as a base layer for areas like this where I do want that a slightly more contrast in sections. Okay, so I'm just coming in a bit more. Yeah. I've got to try and work out what it is. There's something about the tree that's the texture on it. I've got to try and work it out. So yeah, I'm just coming in over the top. So this is the buff titanium. Just kind of softening things a little bit. And I'll come back up over here. I think I might be safe even just doing a little bit up here. I'll do it, obviously I'll do a bit more off camera, but this might be enough for me to have a better idea of what lighting I'm going to do here on the actual animal, and we'll see how we go. Not sure if anyone's got an idea of a name for this guy. I've got to name him. Yeah, it's more random squiggles. Let's try and make this look like a branch. I don't know, I might have to look at some more branches to get some more inspiration of different textures I can try and apply onto this, get some better ideas. But yeah, like I said, the next video I'm hoping to be more patterns and markings, but I need to do more research first to make sure that I do the correct markings. And that's the fun thing about doing custom work. You want to do your research, make sure it looks right. And the good thing I enjoy about that too, I'm learning more about the animals when I'm doing it too, so I really enjoy it. Let's go here. Oh, I know, I can make that look chipped out, so I'll put a dark shadow here. Anyone who draws in pastel or paint, you'll know what I'm doing now. I'm just doing really rough blocking in. I'm very light at the moment, if that way it's going to be easy for me to layer it in. And then come in with a highlight, because this will hopefully look like a bit of the wood's been chipped out. Yeah, that actually makes it look a bit more realistic, even though it's this is so rough now. But my brain's really liking this because I can already see how I want to do this next. Because then if I put a highlight here, what's going to happen is we know there's a light source here, like over here. Doing a highlight on this bit tells your brain that it must be raised up and coming in this way. It must be at least raised up high enough to catch that light. So that also gives more depth to this tree branch, because my other fear was that the tree branch would look too flat and not round and not bumpy and that kind of thing. So yeah, I'm happy with that. So if I do that, if I do like a highlight here, so at the moment I'm just blocking this in. And that means that I know it's in place, and then I can more carefully build up the layers and colours better to actually do the details and stuff. So yeah, that's better. Black. So this would be a section that isn't really catching any of that light. I don't want it too dark even though it's a shadow bit, because remember we talked about ambient light. When it's this bright, there's a lot of ambient light bouncing around. That ambient light we need to consider as well. Really rough. I'm not pressing hard. It might look like I'm doing hard, but I'm not. I'm just really rough kind of parts. And then what I'll be doing is I'll build up on those. Cool. Now, this is going to be the slow bit that I'm probably going to leave you on, where I am just going to over and over and over again build up these layers very lightly like this. And I'm going to have to go pick up my daughter. But yeah, for the, you know, people who did come in, even though this was not planned, so I was aware that it wasn't going to be many people, because I just thought, you know what, I have time, let's sit down, let's do a drawing. Thank you for watching. Again, if you do have any questions, let me know. I'll try to make this available. I'll see if I can make it in, if I can add it into the series. If I do that, I will try to see if I can get the comments added in as well, but I'm not holding much hope onto that, so that's why I've been trying to remember to say out loud what the stuff is. Yeah, aww, miss you guys. That's the thing, I really do, I honestly do miss doing this as well, like, so yeah, it's just sad that I can't book it in, because I don't like letting people down, and with a 4-month-old baby and a 3-year-old, it's very unpredictable being able to book things in. So thank you so much for watching. I will try and do more live draws again, but they're probably going to be like this, where there's no planning. I just do it and hope that someone's free to watch. So yeah, thanks again, guys. Thanks for watching. Catch you later.